So in this video, we're going to review a shortcut for dividing by powers of 10. So if you have a division problem and you have a power of 10 in the denominator, you can long divide by that divisor, or you can use the shortcut. Before we can jump into the shortcut, let's do a quick review of what a power of 10 means. So powers of 10 involve when you have a 10 for your base and an exponent. So our exponent in this problem is 10 to the first power, which is 10. Our second example, 10 to the second power means 10 times 10, which is 100. And then our 10 to the third power means 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. So what then would 10 to the fourth power be if you look at your pattern? Well, you could multiply out 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, but as you can see, when you multiply repeatedly by 10, your first digit should always be a 1, because 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. The next thing that you should notice is 10 to the first power is just 10. 10 to the second power is 10 times 10. There are two 10s, and you can see two zeros in that multiplication problem. So you could take the 1 and put two zeros on the end. Or what is more accurate is not to put two zeros on the end, but to move the decimal two places out and from 1, and then fill your holes with zeros. And your decimal moves two places to the right. Multiplying 10 times 10 is, again, moving that decimal point from the 1 two places over to make 100. This one right here is 10 times 10 times 10. Again, you have a 1 at the start, because when you multiply 10 times 10 times 10, you're ultimately going to have 1 times 1 times 1. And you will follow with 3 zeros. So it's 1,000. A 1 followed by 3 zeros. But again, we're really not just putting zeros on the end. You're actually moving a decimal point 3 places. Every time you multiply by 10, your number gets 10 times bigger. The decimal goes out 1 place at a time. So there's multiplying by the first 10, the decimal moves, second 10, fill your holes with zeros, third 10, and you get 1,000. That means 10 to the fourth power would be a 1, and you're going to move your decimal 4 places out, one time for each 10 that you multiply by. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you fill those holes with zeros, and you get the number 10,000. So what does that mean for this last example, 10 to the ninth power? Well, I don't want to write out 10 of these, or sorry, 9 of these, 10 to the ninth power. So the simplest way to do it is to start with your 1, move the decimal 9 places, 1 for each 10 you're multiplying by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then that means you're going to fill your holes with 9 zeros. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we're going to put our commas in. We're going to start on the right and group into 3s. 1, 2, and 3. So this number is actually 1 billion. All right, so those are powers of 10. All right, we're going to take a look finally at dividing by powers of 10. So when you look at this problem, you may think you need to long divide with the bracket. Put 300 in the house. Let me get my set. You might think you have to do it this way. 300 goes in the house, 10 goes on the outside. And you can do that and get a correct answer. But there is a shortcut for dividing by powers of 10, 2 of them actually. In this case, it's set up as a fraction. So what you can do is, since you're dividing by 10s and they both have zeros on the end, you can cross off the common zeros, only the ones they have in common. They have 1 in common, so you can cross off the 1 in the top and the 1 in the bottom, and then you're left with 30 divided by 1, which is 30. That's one way to do it. Okay, another way to do it is to take your 300 and find the decimal point in 300. Well, it's a whole number. All whole numbers have decimals. Then you don't typically write them in. They're to the right of the last digit in your number. So it would be right here. And so what we're going to do is, since we're dividing by 10, which is 10 to the first power, there's just one 10, we just move the decimal to the left when we divide one place. And we put the decimal point between the two zeros here, and we get 30.0, and you can drop the ending zeros and the decimal point, and you get 30. So example 2, we have 4,000 divided by 100. Again, we can cross out the common zeros. They both have end zeros, and there's 2 in common. So we can cross off both, and we'll get the same answer as if we did 4,000 divided by 100. So if you had 4,000 and you did long division and divided it by 100, it would be the same exact answer as 40 divided by 1. And 40 divided by 1 is 40. So we don't actually have to do the long division up here. We can just cross off the end common zeros, the ones they have in common, because these are whole numbers, cross them off, and then do the division of 40 divided by 1. Here's another way to do this problem. If you have the 4,000, instead of crossing off the common zeros, 100 is 10 to the second power. So we can take that end decimal point. Remember, 4,000 is a whole number. The decimal point belongs to the right of the last digit. And you can move that decimal point 2 places because you have a power of 10. That's exponent is 2. 2 factors of 10 that you're pulling out. So this ends up 40.00. Well, we know that you can cross off of these numbers, these ending zeros, because they have no value to that. They add no value, whether they're in or out. You get the same answer, 40. All right, example 3. Example 3, we have 2 common zeros on the end of the number, so we can cross off 2 of them. That's the one way to do this shortcut. And you end up with 3,520. 3,520. The other way you could do this problem is take your 352,000, find that end decimal point. It's a whole number, so again, it goes on the right of the to the right of the last digit. And we're dividing by 100, which is 2 zeros in it, which means it has 2 factors of 10 that we're going to pull out. 1 to the left, 2 to the left. That's for the first 10 in 100, then for the second 10 in 100, and we get 3,520 that way. It's 3,520.00, but again, if we have zeros to the right of a decimal, they don't add value to our numbers, so we're allowed to drop them. So the answer to this one is 3,520. So either shortcut is fine on those. We're going to look at one more. And this is a challenge. It's 350 divided by 10,000. When you're looking at these problems up here, the numerator, your dividend, is always bigger than your divisor. This one, our dividend is smaller than our divisor, so it might look a little strange. But we can handle it using the second shortcut. If we try to cross off common zeros, there's 1. And if we do that, okay, it's still allowed, but you can't then just, now you have to do 35 divided by 1,000. Okay, we didn't just get a 1 down here. We still have a divisor that's not 1. So we would have to work it out using long division, or the second shortcut I showed you up here, where you take the decimal point and you slide it to the left when you divide. By a power of 10. So here we go. Let's put that common zero back into our problems. And let's try this out. So it's 350 divided by 10,000. Well, I'm going to stick my decimal point in to the right of the last digit because it's a whole number. That's where the decimals belong. We just don't usually write them in because they're whole numbers. And we're going to swoop that decimal for every 10. Well, there are 4 tens in 10,000. You can tell because there's 4 zeros here. That tells you how many tens are built in. So for every 10, we swoop 1 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we put that decimal here. Now we've got to fill this hole with a 0. So I'm going to fill that hole with a 0. I'll do it in green so you can see it wasn't in our problem originally. We built it in. And then our new and improved answer, shortcut, using the shortcut, is 0.0350. Now you can drop this last 0. And if you want, a lot of times we fill the ones place with the 0 so we can distinguish where the decimal really is, which is right here. I like to put a 0 in the ones place. It's equivalent if you leave it out as 0.035. I just think it's always more appropriate to put it there because that's helps us with that decimal point and seeing that decimal point very clearly. So that is how you shortcut for dividing by powers of 10. So anytime you see that this year, use that instead of that long division. Just speed things up for yourself.